The film opens with Gwen Stacy recapping her previous adventure while jamming out on the drums with her friends. In addition to her multiversal travels and meeting Miles Morales, Gwen goes back to when she and her Peter Parker were best friends, even close to Gwen's family, including her father Captain George Stacy. Sadly, Peter took a serum that turned him into the Lizard, and Gwen fought and ended up killing him during a school dance. George believed Spider-Gwen was a murderer and issued a manhunt for her. Gwen misses Miles and has never felt more alone. After a chat with her father, Gwen overhears police chatter and follows her dad to a crime scene where the Vulture is attacking. Gwen notices that this Vulture is not her own, as he comes from a Renaissance-era universe. Gwen attempts to subdue the villain but is overpowered. A portal opens, and Spider-Man 2099 jumps out. Despite his own set of skills and powers, he has to ask his virtual assistant Lila to call for backup. In enters pregnant superhero Jessica Drew. Together, the three manage to bring Vulture down. Jess is impressed with Gwen's skills and suggests to Miguel that she join their team, but Miguel disagrees. George then enters and tries to arrest Gwen, forcing her to reveal her identity to him. Even after she tries to explain herself, George still tries to arrest her. Miguel traps George and gives Gwen a wrist device that allows her to travel between universes. Gwen looks at her dad one last time before joining Miguel and Jess. In Miles's universe, Earth 1610, he is struggling to maintain his school life and his life as Spider-Man. While his parents Jefferson and Rio are in a meeting with his guidance counselor, Miles enters a bodega where he finds a supervillain called the Spot trying to steal from the ATM with the portals that his body generates. Miles chases after Spot, who proves to be tricky to catch until Miles manages to tangle him up through his portals so he can meet with his parents. During the meeting, his parents are upset to learn Miles has missed 6 Spanish classes, resulting in him getting a B. Miles then sees that Spot has escaped, forcing him to cut the meeting short and run. Jefferson is also called upon to catch the criminal, leaving Rio alone. Miles follows Spot to Alchemax, where he claims to Miles is where his hatred for him began. Jefferson arrives and gets caught up in the chaos until Miles manages to knock Spot down. He explains to Miles that he used to be Dr. Jonathan Owen, a scientist at the Alchemex facility that he and Peter B. Parker robbed, and after the Spider People destroyed the Collider, his body was infused with particles that caused his skin to turn white and produce portals. He charges towards Miles, but he ends up literally kicking his own butt through his last portal. Afterwards, Miles chats with Jefferson, trying to convince him to let his son spread his wings. Spot finds himself in a void between worlds, surrounded by portals. He tries to go through them and ends up in different universes, including a Lego universe, and one where he meets Mrs. Chen. Spot manages to return to his universe and decides he needs to absorb more energy from colliders in Alchemax facilities across different dimensions in order to bring Miles down. A party is held for Jefferson's upcoming promotion to captain of the police force, but Miles is late because he is picking up a cake. On his way, he has to stop crime, which causes him to be more late and miss Jefferson's toast. When he finally does arrive, Jefferson and Rio scold Miles, leading to a loud argument where Miles wants to tell his parents his secret identity, but he knows he can't do it there. Miles goes back to his room where Gwen appears in a portal to visit him. He is happy to see her and she invites him to go out with her, even though his parents grounded him. Miles puts on his Spidey suit and joins Gwen in swinging around the city. They stop at a skyscraper to hang upside down, and while Gwen appears to acknowledge Miles's feelings for her, she reminds him that in every other universe where a Gwen Stacy falls in love with Spider-Man, things don't end well for either of them. They return to the party, where Jefferson and Rio meet Gwen but still have their suspicions about her. After Gwen has to leave due to Spidey-related business, Rio has a heart-to-heart with Miles about how he's growing up and for him to take care of himself, while also encouraging him to go after Gwen. Miles goes invisible and follows Gwen to a crime scene where Spot has been. Gwen replays the events using a device that shows her that Spot put himself inside a collider to give him more portals. Gwen is contacted by Jess, as she had been assigned to the task of finding the multiversal anomaly, and Miles overhears Jess tell Gwen to forget about him. Jess also tracks Spot's newest location down to a different Earth in a city called Mumbattan. Gwen goes through the portal, and Miles follows her after a brief hesitation. Miles enters Mumbattan and comes in just as Gwen is chasing after Spot. Since Miles doesn't have the universe-jumping device, he glitches and is unable to help. The two are joined by Pavitra Prabhakar, who brings his own skill set to the fight. He gives his own "let's do this one last time" intro like the other spider people have, revealing he is an ordinary high school student who is dating his dream girl Gayatri, daughter of Inspector Singh, who is not fond of Pavitra. They chase Spot to the Mumbattan Alchemax, where he starts to fuse with that building's collider. Miles tries to use his powers to absorb the force field holding them back, only for them to be met by Hobie Brown, a rule-breaking rocker who uses his power to break the force field. Miles has some jealousy toward Hobie because Gwen is said to have crashed in his dimension a few times. Despite their combined efforts, they fail to stop Spot from fusing with the collider, giving him more portals and causing the lab to start to crash. Miles also appears to see a vision of his father going to rescue a child, to which Spot says that this vision is their future. The four spider people run outside to save citizens from the collapsing building. They get everyone off the bridge and attempt to stop the debris from doing too much damage. Pavitra webs a bus that Gayatri is on, while her father is attempting to save a little girl on a bridge. Miles goes after Singh, despite Gwen trying to stop him. He manages to prevent Singh's death while Pavitra saves Gayatri. The citizens cheer the spider people on before a portal opens up in the city and begins to absorb parts of this universe. Jess arrives with her own team to fix things while telling Miles that he is wanted at their headquarters. Miles joins the others as they arrive at the headquarters of the Spider Society, which features hundreds of Spideys from hundreds of universes. Jess gives Miles a wristband that he can use so he won't glitch. Miles is shown other things like the villains captured across the multiverse, which includes a version of Prowler. Miles is also reunited with Peter B., who introduces him and Gwen to his daughter Mayday that he had with Mary Jane. Miles is brought to meet Miguel, who runs the Spider Society. He is angry with Miles because he prevented a canon event from happening. In each universe with a spider person, a police captain is supposed to die in the line of duty, and in most cases, it's a version of Captain Stacy. Miles saving Inspector Singh was not supposed to happen, and Miles realizes that this means his dad is in danger. Miguel explains that tampering with canon events can lead to devastating consequences. He jumped to a universe where one of his variants died, so he assumed that Miguel's life and his family. This led to an anomaly where many people were erased from this universe, including Miguel's daughter. When Miles argues that they can't just allow his father to die, the other spider people seem to have already known that this had to happen. He is confronted by the other spider people before Miguel places him in a trap. Miles then uses his powers to break through the trap and escape, prompting Miguel to send every last spider person after him. Miles runs and swings through the facility, fighting off every spider person that comes his way. They make it to a train where Miguel tries to go after Miles himself, leading to a fight where Miguel tells Miles that he was never supposed to be Spider-Man since the spider that bit him wasn't even from his universe. He also blames Miles for his Peter dying and for the universe where the spider came from not having a Spider-Man. Gwen and Peter B appear to have known about this, which hurts Miles even more since he figures that's why they never went to visit him. Miles then reveals he had planned all along to draw out the spider people away from the tower before using his electric powers to get Miguel off of him and jumping off the train. Miles returns to HQ where Margot's avatar is still there. He starts to activate a machine that will send him back to his universe. Miguel and the other spider people show up, but Margot allows Miles to go home. Miguel then punishes Gwen for helping Miles and takes away her device before sending her back to her dimension. He then gathers Jess and Ben to go after Miles. Gwen ends up back in her old apartment, where George is still staying alone. She finds a picture of herself with Miles and almost leaves before George wakes up and finds her. Gwen expresses her anger toward him for blaming her for her Peter's death, and George says he quit the force after Gwen left. They reconcile, and George gives her a device that was left behind for her by Hobie. She gives her dad a hug before jumping to Miles's universe. Miles goes to his apartment and is found by Rio. He decides to come clean and reveal himself as Spider-Man, only for Rio to ask who Spider-Man is. When Gwen goes to Miles's room, she finds that he's not there. Miles then discovers that his uncle Aaron Davis is alive, meaning he was sent to the wrong universe, specifically Earth 42, the universe where the spider that bit him came from. Gwen also realizes the same before she is spotted by Jefferson and Rio. Even though they still don't trust her, she promises to find Miles. Meanwhile, Miles joins Aaron on a job, where he sees a mural revealing that Jefferson is already dead in this universe. Moments later, a figure dressed as Prowler shows up to knock Miles out. Miles wakes up in Aaron's apartment tied to a punching bag. When Miles tries to talk about his Prowler story from his universe, Aaron says he's not the Prowler. The real Prowler shows up and reveals himself to be the Miles from this universe. Before Prowler Miles can do anything else, our Miles appears to be gearing up his electricity on the chains holding him down. In Miles's universe, Spot arrives and prepares to go after Jefferson. Meanwhile, Gwen forms her own team of spider people, which includes not only Peter B. and Mayday, Hobie, Pavitr, and Margot, but also the return of Spider-Noir, Spider-Ham, and Penny Parker. The team then heads off to rescue Miles.